Sorry, I just started the recording. You can find more information about what we do and who we are and upcoming series by scanning this QR code. For example, right now we are doing a cybersecurity series wherein we are having a series of talks on different topics related to cybersecurity. And apart from this, we also have an interview ready series wherein we prepare people for interviews mainly in the software roles. And apart from that, we also have a regular Python study group for anyone who's a Python enthusiast. So to learn more about it, we welcome you all to take a look at our website. And going on to today's speaker, today we have with us Ms. Ashwini Siddhi. Ashwini is an expert in app security, and she specializes in security architecture and design and supply chain security strategy, privacy by design, and zero trust architecture. And in Dell Technologies, she provides leadership for secure design review and threat modeling services. And she actively contributes to security forums and is a big advocate for diversity and inclusion. Also, on a side note, Ashwini has recently published a paper on threat modeling, which I believe we will be talking more about it in today's session. She's a champion in leading the efforts for more women representation in the cybersecurity field. I extend a very warm welcome to you on behalf of Women Who Code, and we are really elated to have you with us today to share your knowledge and experience. Without much ado, Ashwini, I welcome you to take on the floor.
Thank you, Shruti. And this is really a great initiative, right? It really sounds like fun because you're having so many different series and interview-ready series. So it's practical and it's also valuable to participants. So I think it's a great initiative.
Right, yes.
Yeah. All right. So I think I will start sharing my screen. So this is nothing boring. So I hope you don't have to worry about it being boring. All right. This is about my journey in general and what led me to be here, right? Be in my current position as to what led me to be the threat modeling service owner for Dell Technologies. That's what we're going to talk about. It's been a long journey. It's not been easy. It's not as easy as it is now. When I say it's easy, people tend to reach roles much sooner than it was before. So you'll understand when we talk about it, what it has been like. So I am pretty much excited to be here. And I'm an advocate for women who code, women in technology, women in cybersecurity, all of these things. It really makes me proud to see women go out of the boundaries that people have defined for them and do something beyond that, especially in technology and even otherwise, right? So it really makes me proud and really happy to see all of that. And it really enthusiasms me, right? So that's what motivates me to keep doing more things so that it's just not me and it's also inspiring other folks, etc. So yeah, so I do all things threat modeling for Dell. And I'm excited to be here and hear about women who code and also present something about my journey here. I think it's it's a privilege and it's an honor to be here and talk about my journey here. So not long ago, right? In early 2000s, that is, it's about like 2006, etc. I started off my journey in the IT industry. Don't ask me why I wanted to join the IT industry. I wasn't sure. Everybody was joining the IT industry. So I thought that's the natural thing to do and just get into an IT company. And at least I come from Bangalore, and Infosys and Wipro was like a really, really big deal. You could say you're from Intel, you could say you're from Texas Instruments, nobody would know. But if you said like you're from Infosys, people would be like, oh, wow, that's so awesome, right? So I had this aim of wanting to join Infosys, and it's been my childhood dream since 9th standard that I wanted to get into Infosys. What I would do after getting into Infosys, don't ask me. I had zero idea. I had absolutely no idea what happens in a development team, what happens in a software company, what is a services company or a product company. I had zero idea. I just went with dreams in my eyes and started off my IT journey. Very excited. I did my Infosys training and software. It was for about 6 months. It was a long-term training because I'm an electronics engineer. And after which, right, I was posted to a business unit, which was mostly dealing with telecommunication protocols, all of these, your layer 2 and layer 3 protocols, because it was for switches and routers. Technology wise, it sounded great. It was amazing because I was an electronic student. It means I had studied networks and communications. So it aligned with what I had studied, and I could relate to it. And I was very happy to be there, right? I was like, okay, I got into the right team and all of that. So I started off my journey as a developer after my training. So this is what I call as the SDLC wanderer phase here, right? So I didn't know what I was doing. I was just happy to start doing something, be on the floor, look at seniors, and they were like, you know, so busy doing random stuff, not random, talking serious stuff. And so it was pretty exciting. So I was really happy to be there. So I thought, okay, let me be a developer, and started writing code. Honestly, after a month or so, I was like, okay, I can't do this, right? Because not to say that development is bad, but I realized it's not something that I can do for the rest of my life, right? I cannot wake up every morning and say, hey, I'm excited to go this or do this today at work. So it was not something that I really looked forward to. Sorry, I got distracted by the message you sent about the paper. Yes, I will share the link with you. Yeah, so it was not something that I really look forward to, right? Because what happened back then, at least, was it's not that you were writing something new on your own. It was not like you were designing a product all by yourself and writing the code, nothing of that sort, right? Somebody had already written lines of code in C or at the max C++, and all you had to do is add to it. It was certainly not exciting for me, and I was like bored of it, right? And then I went and spoke to my manager and said, I can't do this. She was kind to me and she said, okay, let's put you in the testing team, in the same team, right? Because she was not ready to let go of me to a different team. So I joined the testing team. When I joined the testing team, I was happy to break stuff, right? It means write test cases, especially the negative test cases, to see how things can go wrong in terms of functionality. So it was exciting in the sense that, you know, I didn't have to go back home and while sleeping, think which semicolon did I miss? Why is my code not working? So it was not that, but it was like just about being creative and trying to break things. So I enjoyed it for some time. But again, right, it was not something that I really could envision doing for years together, right? Something where I would innovate, etc. So while I was an SDLC wanderer, like the software development lifecycle wanderer, right? Learning how to code, understanding how the development team works, and also writing test cases, etc. I was also actively looking for options as to what I could do. What would that interest me, right? I mean, which doesn't seem like a chore, which doesn't seem like a job where I'm forced to do. So luckily for me, fortunately, I like to read a lot, right? And this reading translated from reading books to reading a lot of articles online. And while I was looking up the net, I found that OWASP top 10 was released for the first time in 2003. Right, so that sounded exciting, but this was around 2006-07 already. So not many people were talking about it, but there was an article on rediff.com, that too, because there was a cross-site scripting that was reported. I'm not sure where and which product it was reported, but it was something new that not many people were talking about. It sounded really exciting to me. I thought, why can't I be doing something like this, right? And I went up and looked OWASP top 10 2003. It looked amazing, right? I mean, all of those different issues that it was talking about. I was like, wow, we don't do anything of this sort at work. And also, fortunately for me, I like to keep in touch with people and talk a lot to people. So I have had and have a good network, touch wood. So I was talking to one of my friends over lunch that, I wish Infosys did something like this. It would be really good to be part of this team. And one thing led to another thing, and I realized, I got to know that there was a team that did something like this, but it was like a really small team of like about 10 people, not more than that. And all of them were guys. All right. So I went and spoke to the manager, said that I really want to be part of your team. He said, yeah, somebody who's coming with SDLC background, who understands what a development team does, is of great value. So if you can clear the interview rounds, then you're sure to be on the team. So that's where my learner mode got activated, right? I was like a self-learned security person, right? So I started reading up OWASP top 10 first, and then installed web code, and tried to replicate what was spoken about in OWASP top 10. Reading and understanding OWASP top 10 is one thing, but actually to replicate it and ensure that you're getting results in real, is another thing, right? Because we didn't have many apps like the vulnerable apps that you have all over the net these days, right? So you had to work with the minimal resources that you had, and also you had nobody to really guide you. So it was just me trying my hands on all of that, all the while doing my regular day job, right? And eventually I understood the concepts at a very basic level. I'm not saying I was a pro or anything. And I went and gave my interview, and thankfully I cleared it. And I'm really grateful for that opportunity in Infosys. And I was put on the team for application security, and also called as AppSec. Here it was, right? I mean, people, the 10 guys that have been there from a really long time, and they have like a special bonding already. They go for coffee together, they do everything together. So I was like an outsider who didn't look or fit into the role of a security person, who could understand how to break into something, or who could be smart enough to apply her mind like that, right? So I was mostly kept out of all of these social events and interactions, etc. So the best work went to them. Anything that was left over came to me. Anything that people were not ready to pick up, right? It meant that it was not just application security. It could also be network security. But I didn't give a damn, because I was learning. I was happy. There was something fun to do. So I was taking up whatever came my way, even if it didn't fit the clear application security journey or the roadmap, right? So I started with pen testing, because I had learned OWASP top 10, how to use web code, all of that. I started with pen testing. And then I started doing source code reviews. 45 was the big thing then, and explaining it to the application team and telling them what, how things are done, all of that. And then I started doing VAPT, use Nessus to understand what services ports are open, why they shouldn't be open, and explain it to the development team. So I had started doing pen testing. I started doing source code analysis reviews. I had started doing VAPT, Nessus, and all of that. So it's mostly covered SDL, right? The secure development lifecycle. So I've been exploring different areas. So if you see, most people just stick to pen testing. They wouldn't want to do source code analysis review, because they're like, oh no, that's not my cup of tea. It's not like the cool or glamorous thing to do, right? So yeah, so that's about it. I just picked it up and I continued to do it. And there was also times when I went to these data centers for network security to install gateways, to install firewalls, these big, huge machines, appliances, which I couldn't carry. And freezing, right? I mean, you had to wear layers of sweaters and be in the data center and configure them, antiviruses, malware solutions, data loss prevention solutions. So I've had hands-on experience in network security also. So I was an explorer, trying and understanding and learning everything across AppSec and outside of AppSec, right? So that is what gave me the breadth of my expertise, is what I would like to think. And one fine day, fortunately, the RBI, right, Reserve Bank of India, came out with guidelines for all banking systems, saying that existing ways of working will not do your core banking systems. That is your software that your bankers use, not what we use as end users. The software that the bankers use have to go through certain processes, have to be securely designed and developed, need to have OTP. That's when two-factor authentication. That's when the first concept of two-factor authentication for banking, for core banking, was spoken about in India. So it was a new and a niche area. Nobody really knew if it will stick on, if it will really continue to be so, because it was so complicated. We didn't have the right vendors who could scale up to this, at least in India, right? And I was part of the project, right? I was to lead this multi-factor authentication for core banking system. And that started my security architecture journey. Until then, at least for core banking systems and the systems that we worked with, there was no security architect per se. So that was like a trailblazer thing for me. And that really started my journey in security. Everything else that happened before, right? SDL Explorer, learning about VAPT, source code analysis, pen testing, all of that, it was just my learning journey, right? So that is what led me to where I am currently. And I look back and don't think about it as like, oh my God, it's been so long. I spent 7-8 years just trying to reach where I am. No, right? Each thing, each process phase that I went through somehow added to my current journey. It gave me skills about that could add to where I am. Especially, right? I mean, the fact that I went with dreams, right? I kept an open mind and went with dreams. Enforces the fact that positivity really matters. You need to keep an open mind. You need to know that, okay, something good will come out of this. You need to have that faith in yourself and then move forward, right? So that's what my just out of college phase taught me, that attitude really matters. Things get challenging as in when you grow up, but I think it's important to go back to those days and remember how that attitude made a difference. So that positivity really helped me. And the fact that I've spent at least about a year or so with a development team made me understand how a development team works, what happens in there, right? I mean, I was building forms for the UI, I was writing lines of code, I was writing test cases. So when I define a process now as a threat modeling service owner, I know how it is going to be taken in a development team. I know what are the challenges that they face. I know they've also moved, right? They've changed from a waterfall model to agile and all of that, but I still can make that mapping and understand how are these security processes going to impact development teams, right? So it makes me more empathetic and my solutions are more dev friendly, right? So that is the bit that spending time in a development team gave me. And being a seeker, right? If you're stuck with something, if you have vision, if you can see long term and envision what is that you want it to look like for yourself or for the solution that you're implementing, I think it really helps, right? So that phase really gave me ability to see long term and plan and structure your activities, right? It's not a quick jump, right? It is a structured, phased approach, like a roadmap that you would have to put in. So here I was first looking, then I was learning, and then I gave an interview, and then again, I was still learning, obviously at a much deeper level. So it is like a multi-year roadmap. And you need to have that vision. Okay, I know where I'm going to end up with this. Otherwise, it's easy to feel lost. And, it's like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore and give up. I know so many people who've given up because they couldn't see, didn't have this vision. They're like, oh, no, okay, maybe security is not a big deal. Maybe we might not have that many openings in security. They might not pick me. Why would they pick somebody in India? All of the expertise is in the US, all sorts of doubts, right? So if you don't have that vision, I think it's sort of pulls you back. That phase really gave me ability to plan long term, not just for myself, but anything that I work with, right? Processes and solutions, all of that. And the fact that I learned all of this myself, I had no mentor, means that I am able to train people better in a very dev-friendly language. So this was an advantage. The reason I was picked as a threat modeling service owner when I joined Dell, because obviously there are folks who come from MIT, who have master's degrees in cybersecurity, who come from IITs. All my peers have masters. I'm the only one who does not have. No, that does not mean I'm a diversity candidate, right? It does not mean that. It means that I've spent considerable amount of time in service industry trying to understand the practical aspects of things, right? So my ability to train people in development friendly language was what gave me the edge over everybody else, over academic considerations, and this practicality translated into me being this service owner, right? So the ability to not just understand, but translate it to the community for a better purpose, I think what gives you an edge as a leader, as an industry person in security or any area, right? It could be Python, or it could be anything in software, or even hardware, like Shruti comes from, right? So that's what leads you there. So the learner aspect was really helpful to me, like creating lesson plans, what day fits into what kind of activity. It's a Friday, I have the entire afternoon off, I can get my hands dirty and do something crazy. No, it's just a Monday, it's going to be busy, so I'll just read like for 30 minutes the security news, that's all. So plan according to how your days go, etc. So that gave me that perspective. And when I joined the security team, when I picked up anything and everything, including firewalls and gateways, it gave me the breadth of experience, right? I could say that I'm not just an AppSec person, but I also am a network security person. I understand infrastructure. I understand the network components of a solution, etc. So that is the reason I am not just involved in threat modeling, but also in supply chain, in zero trust architecture, as well as privacy by design and all such aspects. So it gave me that breadth. But obviously my favorite bit, right? The security architecture thing gave me the depth. You need to identify which area you resonate with. Every morning you wake up, even if it has been more than 10 years, and you say, I love this thing that I'm doing. There's so much more to do here. I have this innovative idea. I have that innovative idea. So anything that gives you that kind of enthusiasm to wake up every day and constantly have those ideas in your head. Sometimes I'm just randomly sleeping on my bed and thinking about what else can I do with threat modeling, right? It's not that I'm forcefully thinking, but it just comes to me, right? So you identify some area like that and spend all of your time with it, and then that gives you the depth, right? It's good to have breadth, but you also need to be a SME in one particular area. So I think the time that I spent trying to lead the multi-factor authentication for core banking system, and my experience as a security architect for that particular team gave me the depth with which I went on to, I changed my company. It also gave me the confidence to change my company. Till then, I was in one company. I was like, I don't think any other organization is going to do security like the way this organization does. I had that mind block. But after I spent time with the core banking team, I was confident enough to go look out for jobs. And I did find another security job where I could own the complete security strategy for an e-commerce platform. And that was big then, right? So, and after which I joined Dell, the legacy EMC. After that, I've not looked back. So it's been more than 6 years here. Yeah, so that's what my journey's been like. So that's what led me to be the threat modeling service owner. I joined Dell EMC to do SDLC, like the SDL Explorer area that I was talking about, everything from threat modeling for solution, look at their code, look at their pen test results, all of that. But obviously my focus area was threat modeling. And like I said, I was training folks in threat modeling, all of that. And that led me to be the threat modeling service owner. So that's how, it's a long journey. I ended up here. Yeah, so that's about my journey. So I think I'm over time. So if you have questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Ashwini, for this. This is like very inspiring journey, and I have been observing how you have worked so far. I've been one of your mentees as well, like in EMC, and so glad to be here. So I have a couple of questions. Like first of all, congrats on your recent paper, right? Maybe if you can shed some light on that, we would be very interested to hear that.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. So this paper is right. It's pretty much translating all of my experience as threat modeling service owner at Dell, right? So when I was made the threat modeling service owner, legacy EMC and legacy Dell were coming together. They had different ways of doing threat modeling. And me as a service owner, I had to ensure that we had a consistent way of doing threat modeling and reporting it up to the CISO, because reporting matters. We get the budgets from him to have security engineers. So it meant that we needed a consistent approach that all stakeholders understand. We need to account for not just design, we need to account for what happens after threat modeling is done. There are certain products in legacy EMC that go for Fed compliance, and there are certain cloud-based applications and legacy Dell, etc. So there were different technical considerations, compliance considerations, all of this that was coming up and changing the dimensions for how we do threat modeling, all of that, right? So we realized an organization as big as Dell has so many challenges to run a program just for threat modeling. So it means that it's not just us who's facing this issue, right? It's a problem across the industry, and nobody is really talking about it. When people talk about threat modeling, it's mostly about what tool do we use for threat modeling? Okay, is there a new emerging threat? How do we mitigate it? That's all the conversation is limited about. So we wanted to move beyond that and ensure, how do we tell organizations, how do you run a threat modeling service program? What do you need to do ensure that your teams are doing threat modeling right? What are you doing with the results? So we wanted to put out a framework, a process there, and that is what this paper is about. It's about threat modeling at scale for big organizations.
That's great. Is it something like a beginner friendly where someone can just start with, just like an OWASP?
Yeah, I think it is beginner friendly because we've added definitions. We also talk about what is traditional threat modeling. So even if you've not heard of threat modeling before, you can start with this paper. So we've tried to keep it beginner friendly.
Wonderful, wonderful. Like a couple of more questions, like as we are seeing the emergence of AI, right? Like we have been hearing about the generative AI and a lot of things coming up in 2023. What do you think, like in threat modeling, is there any emergence of the AI being like combining with the threat modeling and the AI? Do you foresee any sort of a future in that aspect as well?
Yeah, I'm really excited about AI for threat modeling, right? Because I've learned that people really crave about threat modeling. It's like it's so resource intensive, exhaustive, takes time and effort. So I'm hoping, like, if all of you have used ChatGPT 4, there's an option to provide a diagram, and that diagram actually generates some amount of text for you, right? So I'm hoping we can do something on those lines where you just feed data into this AI system and it automatically does the threat analysis for you and provides results. I think that is going to be really exciting, and you will not have to spend 3-4 hours doing a threat modeling activity. So I think it could potentially change it. Yeah, but also there are new threats that AI by itself will introduce, but it's not my problem to solve now, at least not now.
That's true. That's true. I think the regulatory folks have to look into that maybe rather than us. So yeah, and I've seen you speaking at various conferences or like virtual webinars and stuff. So how do you think like public speaking is very important? Like we have like students who actually want to get into those public speaking, and how do you think communication is an important factor in the cyber industry as per your experience?
See, communication, putting yourself out there matters. Whether you're doing it in the industry or outside doesn't really matter. Putting yourself out there and trying to convey a message that a lot of people don't understand is a learning experience for you too, because you're going to get questions that you probably not thought about, right? So that's going to expand some dimensions in your head, and think about, oh yeah, I didn't think about this. What about this? It has happened so many times when I've spoken about ransomware and all of that. So it gives you a different dimension. And putting yourself out there, you learn how to talk to people who don't understand security. So I think all of these are really important, as and when you own a lot of responsibilities in a security domain. So I think it's important to put yourself out there and create a personal brand, right? I mean, you just can't go to an organization, do things and come back home, right? You need to build your own brand and, have something for yourself too, right? There's nothing wrong in saying that, you have built an identity for yourself, which is independent of an organization. So I think it's good to have. It's motivating. It keeps you in the industry in the longer run also. Yeah, and it's a good networking opportunity. Get to meet a lot of like-minded people. So yeah, so all good. All win-win. I don't really see any negative out there. So I think
That's
you should
awesome.
go put yourself out there.
Awesome. I think like public speaking and conferences also play a very vital role in connecting with new folks. And as you said, on the longer run in the industry, right? Cybersecurity has often got a negative image being very hectic or having no work-life balance. But as far as I believe, like, what are your thoughts? If you have other interests along with your work, how do you manage that and how do you balance it out?
It's see, there are going to be phases where you'll have to put in, forget about everything else at home and put in all that effort at work, right? Because like when the Log4j happened, you had to go back and analyze if all of your systems were vulnerable, what you had to do about it. So it's a phase. It's not like a straight line where it's always going to be a perfect balance. Sometimes you might need to spend more time with family for whatever reason, or your other hobbies, or sometimes you need more time at your work. It's never going to be a straight line. So I think it's understanding that and not expecting that it's always going to be the same is what matters. It's never going to be the same.
So are you going to say that like it's always going to be like hectic, or you will have definitely
it's like after you fixed all the Log4j, right? It's like people know you've worked for a long time. You get to take off like a week or so and, go do your own thing. So you're spending more time, right? So I have seen every time there's an issue that comes up and you spend all your hours, there's always a lull period after that. People understand, people do know that this is hectic at times. So you do get time to cool off and do your own thing, because burnt out staff is not going to help anybody, right? No organization. You're more productive when you've come back fresh from a holiday, etc., or just take a break, refresh your mind and come back. You're most productive then. At least for me, I'm most productive when I'm just leaving for a holiday, right? I'm like, oh no, I have to do this before the holiday. So that's my motivation. So you need to identify at which point you are most productive and put in your best efforts there. Let's say this week you do really well, and next week, for whatever reason, you can't. It's okay to take it slow and catch up the other next week. As long as you know what works for you personally and balance it out, I think it's good. I don't think it's more hectic than any other role that I've seen. I've seen developers work the same way, especially during a release cycle when they have to go for a release. Release managers, all of them, it's crazy. It's either on the same lines, but it's nothing above and beyond what a regular developer would do.
Right.
I don't think it's so crazy hectic. That's what.
Yeah. And one final question, like I'm sure this was something closer to your heart as well. Like you have been championing the cause of women in cybersecurity, right? What is your recommendation, or what is your advice for the upcoming like women out of college, or someone who has to take a mid-career jump into security from other domains? What would your advice be, and what do you think are some of the steps they need to take to get into
so
this?
I would, there's one thing. We talk so much about diversity. We talk so much about I don't want to use the words, but yeah, we talk about diversity and all of that. If I really had it in my mind when I joined Infosys that, this is how industry is going to treat me, there's always not a perfect balance between how they look at a man or a woman. If I had that in my head, I wouldn't be here where I am today. I didn't register it. It didn't matter to me. I just like, oh, this manager's just not treating me right. Let me move on to another place where I'm valued, where my work is respected, right? So that's all that mattered to me. And that's what I did. I never thought about it. Oh, this is how it is. It's going to be the same wherever I go. This is the general trend. No, I didn't know that things are like this. That we need a diversity concept, that things are different for man, women. I didn't think so because I didn't come from such a background. I was always treated as equal. So the fact that I didn't have that in my head, I think was a major plus for me. So I think we'll have to put it behind us that, it could be not so balanced, and go with the attitude that they're going to see us as equals, and it is going to be equal. If I'm not treated right for whatever reason, I know I have the skills to move on to a place where I'm trusted better, where I'm given better opportunities. So that should be your attitude, and not about, okay, it's always going to be like this and blah, blah. I think that is negative self-talk. I think we should move on from that attitude. Sometimes I feel the more we talk about it, the more it registers in our head. So just forget about that and just continue to do what you do.
Absolutely. I think being positive here makes a lot of difference, rather than thinking that there's always someone who's going to treat you wrong. So be it any gender, I think there'll always be some sort of issues you'll face. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ashwini. It was really awesome having you here. Can I share my screen for a minute? Yeah,
sure.
Just really thank you so much for being a part of this. And we really, really liked your talk, and so motivated to pursue our careers in threat modeling as well, for those who are keen to. Once again, thank you so much for this. And finally, on a final note, we have some upcoming events coming in July. One is more into the threat hunting, as with the Sneha from Microsoft, as well as more into the VAPT and bug bounties from someone named Monica. She's from Singapore as well. So do have a look out for these events. And we'll be having more in the cybersecurity series for Women Who Code Singapore. And we look forward to have more folks joining us in the coming days. Thank you so much once again. It was a delight having Ashwini with us. And we look forward to having more such esteemed audiences with us in the going forward. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Shruti, maybe you can stop recording.